Welcome back to the studio of Art by Wendy. Today I'm taking you one step further in mixing watercolors on paper. How to battle the dreaded background and win. The first step is to wet your background evenly, not soaking wet, but so that it has a nice slight sheen to it and it's ready for color. Now, the colors I use are the same colors that are going to be in the foreground or in my main subject. I add splotches of them throughout the background area. Notice they overlap at edges, but the clear color is still showing through. You can see the blues, you can see the yellows, you can see some oranges and greens. Now, of course, they're going to blend a little bit at the edges, which is what you want. But you do still want to see distinct colors, not mud. An important thing to note in your background is what the values are. In the case of my scarlet macaw, you can see that there is light in the very distance, and then it's darker shades of greens and other hints of color. So I have to keep this in mind as I now paint my background. As I add some shapes now to the background, you can see that the paper is still damp, so the edges are not going to be perfectly crisp. At the same time, I'm adding some shapes that I would see in that background, and I'm using some of the colors again that I used in the foreground. Because there is a color or underpainting, those are changing the values and the tones of the color I'm painting on top, thus giving me some interesting background colors that complement and enhance the picture. Things were a little bit too wet with all this additional paint, so I did stop for a minute and work on the foreground. As you can see, I'm working on my rock in the front, using, of course, the same techniques of underpainting and adding extra color. Things are drying, but still damp, and you can always spritzer it with a spray bottle if it gets too dry. And now I'm really adding some darker colors on top of the things underneath. Again, simulating some of the shapes that I would see in the background. Varying my color so that I get different tones of greens and yellows, and even hints of red and blue are in there. Another important thing that is happening, and you will notice with my paint strokes, is as the paper is drying, some of the strokes are getting sharper and clearer, just as it would in the background. Some of the things are going to be faint and further back, and some of them are going to be darker and crisper. You don't want too many of those dark, crisp marks, but a few certainly helps to give that sense of depth and interest that you're looking for. And of course, all the movements of the greens and branches in the background. At this point, I've decided to go back and finish the last of the palm leaves. They need to be darker than the things in the background, but still lighter than what's in front of the bird. So I needed to measure that out. Everything looks pretty good now, and so I think I'm ready to call it quits. Have fun mixing your watercolors on the paper. It's really exciting, all the different colors that you can create. Wendy teaches outdoor sketching classes in the summer, and she teaches in her studio and online throughout the year. Wendy produces original work in pencil and in watercolor. She completes commission work, particularly pet portraits, and produces cards and prints from some of her work.